So I thought I'd do a little Marvel MCU talk today. Excuse me. Been a while since the last did one of these videos. Just really hadn't had much to talk about. Um, so you get all these leaks and everything coming out because the next big movie, the next big movie I think with Marvel is the Spider-Man movie. But I don't think anybody expects that one to fail. There's a lot of things going on with that, but the one that everybody's really focused on is Doomsday and how that all comes together. Um, if you haven't heard, Robert Downey Jr. is back as Doctor Doom. He's from another universe. They're doing this whole thing that leads into Secret Wars, and there's all these different rumors and leaks coming out as far as what the storyline concept and everything will be. Um, Cosmic Wonder, they do a really good job explaining a lot of this stuff, and then they had a video today which I found interesting. And I have even my own thoughts on it, but we'll watch this. It's a good 10, 11-minute video, and then I'll have a little bit of my thoughts as far as what I think on it, but here we go.
Well, despite what some of the Avengers have said, like the Hulk in Avengers Endgame, Steve Rogers going back in time might have actually affected the multiverse. In fact, it sounds like Steve Rogers going back in time to be with Peggy Carter actually caught the attention of Doctor Doom. A new report says that Doctor Doom specifically wants to kill Steve Rogers, and this story is how Chris Evans is going to return as Captain America. We've been hearing a lot about this recently, and like I've said in a few other videos, it sounds like Chris Evans is indeed returning as Captain America. Sure, there might be an evil version of him out there somewhere, and that version might appear in the film, perhaps Captain Hydra, but it sounds like we're going to basically be getting the exact same Steve Rogers that we've had through the Infinity Saga back in the MCU. And the story does work as long as it doesn't really interfere with the ending of Avengers Endgame, where Steve comes back and gives the shield to Sam. Unless it's actually a completely different branch timeline, which we'll get to in a bit. But we have a new report, or actually two reports, from the insider My Time to Shine Hello. The report tells us that Doctor Doom wants Steve Rogers dead because he apparently caused an incursion when he traveled back in time to live with Peggy Carter. She also stated, for the multiverse to live, Steve has to die. Now, this is a very interesting report, and there actually is a lot to this, like a lot. For example, we could really dive into how the Avengers weren't really supposed to create any branch timelines based off of the science that they kind of told us in Avengers Endgame. Going back in time doesn't change your actual future, it creates a branch timeline. And by that logic, the TVA should have went and pruned Steve Rogers' timeline where he went back and stayed with Peggy. But there
So there's only, I get what he's saying as far as they should have pruned the timeline that Steve Rogers make, but the thing is, and I think the Russos actually talked about it, is that he didn't make a branch timeline. He delivered all of the stones back, and then he settled back into the timeline that was the original main timeline for the MCU, that he settled on that, and it didn't disturb anything on that timeline. It didn't create any branches. It was just that particular one. Now, if they're saying they do what this gentleman thinks they're going to do, make a branch timeline, you could always do that in the future. But the way Endgame ended, he delivered all the stones, and then he went back to our timeline, the MCU timeline, and the minute that, or I shouldn't say the minute, but after he went into the ice, he then showed up and lived with Peggy for that time on. So there wouldn't have been a branch timeline to prune, because if he's from the same timeline, one wasn't created. But again, maybe they jazz it up a little bit to make it to where with him staying, it inadvertently created other timelines from that, which is always a possibility.
There are lots of arguments around the multiverse and time travel in the MCU. The whole thing with going back in time in Avengers Endgame was Steve Rogers went back to those exact points in time where the Avengers took the Infinity Stones and he returned them. And that was supposed to cause really no damage. And even the TVA states in Loki season 1, the Avengers were supposed to do that. However, they don't specifically say that Steve was supposed to stay back in time and be with Peggy Carter. And specifically because they don't say that, that makes it possible for the Russo brothers and Stephen McFeely, who also wrote and directed Avengers Endgame, to basically do what they want in Avengers Doomsday. And let's be honest, they can basically do whatever they want regardless. Whatever rules they set up in Avengers Endgame, they could get rid of if they wanted to. And it's not that hard to say the Avengers were actually wrong about time travel. The Hulk is the one who states the rules, and he couldn't even figure out time travel himself. They needed Tony Stark to do it. So basically, there are ways around this to make this story actually work, and to make it to where Steve might have caused an incursion. And that catching the attention of Doctor Doom is actually something that works really well for what we're hearing the story is about for Avengers Doomsday. And that story actually involves Doctor Doom being a hero, at least in the beginning. In the beginning, he'll actually be trying to save the entire multiverse, a quest that will ultimately lead him to Steve Rogers. And I believe that they're basically adapting the Time Runs Out storyline, but they're going to replace Molecule Man and Molecule Men with a bunch of different characters who have caused.
So here's where it gets interesting and where I have a different, I guess, thought process on how they did this. So the storyline goes, in the comics, there's this character called Molecule Man who Doom needs, who basically, I guess, can self-destruct. Honestly, I'm probably saying the same thing we'll hear about in a minute. But Doom gathers like hundreds of thousands of these other Molecule Men from the other timelines, and basically builds a giant bomb and blows up either the TVA or the timelines or whatever it is, in which he then creates Battle World, Secret Wars, whatever you want to call it. Excuse me. So that's what he's about to explain. And his explanation, I wouldn't say his thought process or what he's hearing is wrong, but I have a different, and I'll explain it after, what I think could possibly be going on.
Incursions. And honestly, if this is the route that they're going to go down, I'm all here for it. And it could bring Chris Evans back as the actual Steve Rogers that we had in the Infinity Saga. And this is how he gets back in the game and gets connected with the Avengers again. He goes back in time, returns the stones, but he's supposed to come back to the present time. However, he stays back in time to stay with Peggy Carter. And if you think about that, yeah, a lot of problems could probably come from that. And according to this report, if it's true, this caused some problems for the multiverse, and based on what we've been hearing about Doctor Doom, he's going to be trying to save the multiverse. So here's his plan. Track down the people throughout the multiverse who are causing problems. And perhaps in his mind, or whatever strategy he's come up with, whatever reasoning and logic he knows, if he takes out the person who has caused the problems, then the problems go away. However, that's kind of flawed logic, and I think actually that flaw will be explored in the movie. In the comics, there's a story called Time Runs Out, and this story leads right into Secret Wars. This story follows Doctor Doom, who finds out about the Beyonders, and he finds out that they have basically planted a multiversal bomb in every single universe in the form of Molecule Man. The Beyonders specifically created a Molecule Man in every single universe that is exactly the same no matter what universe he's in. And the Beyonders basically made Molecule Man a bomb, and they plan to ignite all of them at the same time, destroying the entire multiverse. So, with the help of what we'll call the main Molecule Man, at least the main one in the Time Runs Out and Secret War story, they come up with a plan, Molecule Man and Doctor Doom, and the plan is to basically go to every single universe and kill every single Molecule Man. So for Avengers Doomsday, it's kind of sounding like we're going to get a very similar story. However, it sounds like the Russo brothers are going to replace Molecule Man and all of the Molecule Men in every single universe with characters that we know and love who have accidentally caused incursions. So, Steve Rogers, because of what he did at the end of Avengers Endgame, going back in time and staying there. Doctor Strange, who we already know has been causing incursions. Also on the note of Doctor Strange, what Doctor Strange 3 was supposed to explore was the fact that the Illuminati did believe Doctor Strange to be the biggest threat to the multiverse. They were supposed to dive into that more. Not sure when or if we're going to be getting a Doctor Strange 3, but it sounds like this concept is going to be explored even more in Avengers Doomsday, but not just with Doctor Doom, but with anyone who caused an incursion. I gotta say, I really like this idea because it makes it a lot lot more personal. Rather than just having a bunch of different Molecule Men, who is a character that hasn't been introduced in the MCU yet, we have characters that we actually have gotten to know over time, characters that we love, like Steve Rogers, like Doctor Strange, and also this opens it up for surprise actors to come in and play surprise roles. I think this could be really, really cool. But like I mentioned, there is a flaw to this plan. There's another part to the story. In the Time Runs Out story, even after killing thousands of Molecule Men, Molecule Man, the one that is with Doctor Doom, says, "We've only killed 1,000 of me in 5 years. When are we going to get to billions? When are things going to start smashing together?" This is where they realize that killing the Molecule Men isn't going to save the multiverse. They can't save it. And this actually makes a lot of sense in the MCU, with Doom trying to kill these people who have caused the incursions. They've already caused them. The damage is most likely already done, and that's when Doom sets his sights on Loki. You see, eventually Doom decides to just attack the Beyonders. He collects a bunch of different Molecule Men and basically creates a giant bomb and throws it at them. It's also very important to note that Stephen Strange eventually finds out that Doom is indeed trying to save the multiverse, but when they get to the end where Doom is about to attack the Beyonders, Doctor Doom asks Doctor Strange how it's better than what they were going to do to the multiverse, than destroying it. And Doom says, "Ask yourself, Doctor, would it be worth it if we could avoid our certain doom? If we could save something?" And as Doom, Molecule Man, and Doctor Strange approach the Beyonders, Doctor Strange says, yes. Doom attacks the Beyonders, and via Molecule Man, he gets their powers. Then he creates Battleworld, the only thing left after the destruction of the multiverse, one world that is created out of remnants of a bunch of...
So, what he's going with is that you're going to have individuals, which makes sense, in the different timelines that Doom is going to kill, which will cause these different timelines to collapse, falling on themselves or whatever. Which, hey, that's he made some good points on that. You could bring in cameos, you could bring in characters that have been killed off before, bring them back just to kill them off again. There's that possibility there. The only thing is, this was my thought. In the last movie, The Thunderbolts, Sentry was introduced. Why would Sentry be introduced just before going into the Doomsday stuff? Sentry is one of the most powerful beings in the comic book universe of Marvel. He also has the Void that's part of him. What if, since they've never introduced Molecule Man in the MCU, what if Sentry replaces Molecule Man and Doom realizes the only way he can take, let's say they put the Beyonders in the movie. Doom realizes the only way he can take the Beyonders on is by inheriting or taking Sentry's powers. So let's replace Sentry with Molecule Man and have him be, trick Sentry into going into these different timelines to kill himself off. And then when it comes to it, he kills Sentry, because I don't think they're going to have Sentry in Secret Wars. He would just be too overpowering, or just would not make sense. So I think he gets killed off in this Doomsday movie, because, what's the point of having him in the future movies? They'll just recast. I think, Doom will replace Sentry with Molecule Man. He'll kill Sentry. He'll gain his powers, in which he will then, instead of the Beyonders, it'll be Loki. He will go after Loki. Again, unless they decide to introduce the Beyonders in this movie, in which I don't think Loki makes it out of this movie. I think Loki is killed by Doom, and that's what causes all the timelines to converge and crash, in which Doom, with the power of Sentry and Loki, will then create this world for the Secret Wars. Heck, maybe he tricks Molecule Man, or not Molecule Man, maybe he tricks Sentry. Maybe they don't even kill other Sentries. Maybe he uses Sentry, goes into him like what he did from the movie to, manipulates him into thinking that all these people are against him and he needs to trust Doom, and gets him to kill Loki, in which then he kills Sentry or attack Loki, one or the other, in some form of way. And then Doom inherits Loki's powers and destroys the the timelines in which we have Secret Wars. I'm not saying that what the guy in Cosmic Wonders is saying is wrong. I think that is plausible too, where he's going timeline to timeline, killing specific characters off because they did in Deadpool and Wolverine introduce the whole Prime, um, the Nexus being whatever it was from the timelines that hold the timelines together, and once you remove them, the timeline dissolves. So it could be something like that. That Doom is going timeline to timeline, killing these Nexus being whatever beings they were called. I forgot. Killing them off, and that's what causes it. But what if they decide to do the run like the comic? Sentry's the only one that can really take the place of Molecule Man. There's no other character in there besides maybe Scarlet Witch that you could kind of remove him and put that piece in there and it fits. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they'll do when it comes to that, because I could see either way being plausible with how they handle that storyline.
Different universes, which I'm pretty sure is going to simply be the Void in the MCU. The Void from Loki and Deadpool and Wolverine, not the one from the Thunderbolts. Marvel has already established the Void as a place where pieces of dying universes go, a place outside of space and time. So it makes sense that that would be Battleworld. And it sounds like, based on reports that we've heard in the past, that there's going to be a pretty big battle at the TVA and that the Avengers are rushing to get to the TVA and Loki before Doom does. It sounds like,
Again, I think that's part of Doom realizing that he needs to kill Loki to do this, so they have to get to the TVA to try to stop him from killing Loki. And again, what better way to do that than to have Sentry on your side, manipulate Sentry to be on your side?
there's going to be a pretty massive battle at the TVA, and at the same time, incursions are happening. Worlds are being destroyed. Universes destroyed. Basically, the multiverse is on the brink of destruction, and although we don't know exactly what's going to happen, how it's all going to play out, we're pretty sure it ends with the multiverse being destroyed and Doctor Doom creating Battleworld, becoming God Emperor Doom. There is also one other very important part.
Tony, what's going on?
Commercial.
Tell me you found that cube.
Runs out story in the comics. It's actually Doctor Doom who causes the first incursion by killing, for the first time, a Molecule Man. And this basically started a domino effect that couldn't be stopped. I think it's going to be pretty similar in the MCU. Yes, the multiverse is being destroyed because incursions are happening, but I don't think it can be stopped. And I ultimately think that this is what a lot of people are going to realize, or at least a handful of really smart ones, in Avengers Doomsday, which might even lead to some of them siding with Doom, much like Strange does in the comics. And I do actually think, since Doctor Strange is learning a lot about the multiverse, or at least we assume he is because he's going with Clea to try and undo an incursion, I think he's going to find out that incursions can't be undone, and things are set in motion now that can't be stopped. So I think a big part of the ending of Avengers Doomsday comes down to what Doctor Doom asked Doctor Strange in the comics. Is it not worth it to save just something? Because of course the answer is yes. And this is most likely why we've been hearing that Doctor Doom will be a so-called hero in Avengers Doomsday. He is actually trying to stop the multiverse from being destroyed. However, in order to do so, at least what he believes he has to do to stop the incursions and the destruction of the multiverse is to kill people like Steve Rogers, which obviously the Avengers are not going to be about. And not to mention, he does steal Franklin Richards from the Fantastic Four. At least we're pretty sure that's what he does, and that's what the reports have been saying, and the post-credit scene for the Fantastic Four First Steps backs that up. So that won't help his case against the Avengers either. So he's not exactly 100% good, but that's also a part of the story in the comics as well. A lot of people think he's destroying the multiverse instead of trying to save it. But I think a lot of this is starting to come together, at least that's what I think. And I do really like the idea of Marvel replacing Molecule Man, or each Molecule Man in each universe, with a different variant of a character that we know and love. So if this all happens, I'm here for it. But go ahead and let me know what you think about this in the comments down below.
Yeah, go ahead and let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Also, like and subscribe. I always forget to say that. Again, I know he's got leaks, and you got to take leaks with a grain of salt. Sometimes they're dead on. Sometimes they're complete nonsense that are just thrown out there. I could see the concept that he's talking about. like I said, in Deadpool and Wolverine, it was introduced that every timeline has a certain individual that is basically responsible for that timeline existing, and if you remove them from it, the timeline starts dying. So yeah, there is some thought that Doom could just be bouncing timeline to timeline, killing these beings off to destroy those timelines. But excuse me, as was also stated in the TVA in Deadpool and Wolverine, it takes thousands of years for the timeline to finally die off. It doesn't happen right away, and that's why that one guy brought the Time Ripper so he could destroy it quicker. So that kind of, I guess, would put a little hink in that, unless Doom finds a way that it automatically destroys the timeline. Um, I like my theory that he needs Sentry as a replacement for Molecule Man, basically manipulate Sentry to do his biddings, to kill who he needs killed off because he's so powerful. And then in the end, has Sentry either fight or kill Loki, and then he kills Sentry, whatever it may be, and then or maybe injures Loki to the point that he kills Sentry and then kills Loki and gains his powers and does that. But yeah, let me hear you what you think as far as that concept goes. Is his more in line? Is mine more in line, or is yours better? Um, could be a complete unknown that actually happens, and all the leaks and even my theories are completely wrong. But on that note, I'm getting out of here. Hey, get outside, dig that good earth, dig that good earth, and stay off the internet as much as possible. It's not really cool, and the world is real. All right, later.